Okay, well let's get started. It looks like we've got a pretty good crowd. I think so. My name's Tim Kelly. I'm one of the owner founders here at TNT Dental, and I'm really excited to present to you this presentation about planning for growth in 2021. And it looks like with the response we've had for this that a lot of people are like me and are looking forward to 2021. I think we've all had about enough of 2020, that's for sure. So what I want to talk to you about today, and special welcome to our, I think there's quite a few TNT clients on the presentation today, so welcome to all of you. Some of this about TNT you will have heard, but there's a lot of good stuff in there for everybody, and special welcome to those of you who are not TNT clients. Appreciate you all attending today. And so what I really wanted to talk to you about and what this whole presentation about is on the kind of the bottom left corner there of the outline slide, which is net new patients. And one of the things that we've been able to do over the 20 plus years we've been in business and working with great dental practices across the country is observe that some of them are much more successful than others. And so what we've tried to do over the years is find out why. What are they doing? What are these practices that are growing faster, sometimes with the same or less marketing dollars than other practices? What are they doing that's allowing them to grow that fast? And so one of the conclusions we've come to over the years is that they concentrate on this concept of net new patients. And that's kind of a term we've come up with based on what we've observed from these fast growing practices. And so everything I'm talking about today will kind of lead to that. And so as you're planning for your next year, these are things that that we'll be talking about today that will help you in that planning process and make you much more efficient with your marketing dollars and hopefully help you grow quite a bit faster than you have been. So let's just jump right into it. A little bit about TNT Dental first, and then we'll kind of do a case study here. I'll talk to you about one of these practices that certainly fits the bill of growing faster and making the most out of their marketing dollars, Dr. Mitchell. And then I'll share with you some really great insights. And this is pretty interesting stuff here. We did a survey because the other thing we've learned over 20 plus years is that sometimes we're too close to dentistry. You know, those of us in dentistry live it every day, talk about it every day. Sometimes we'll assume that a patient or a potential patient understands the same language that we do, and it's just not true. And so part of what we've done recently is commission our own studies to do surveys with patients, potential patients. What are you looking for in a dental practice? And so we've got some really great insights into that, and some things. If you're not a TNT Dental client, you can take this stuff right back to your web developer, your marketing company, and that should have an impact on you quickly. And if you are a TNT client, hopefully you've already heard from your growth leaders and are working on all these things. And then we'll break down, what are the phases of growth? And if you're wondering, why would a marketing company show you how to do some of these? Because some of these phases of growth will be some techniques on how to get more new patients without spending any more marketing dollars. So we'll talk about that, and we'll get to that concept of net new patients. And all of that leads to the right-hand side of the outline, which is, okay, how do you make your plan for 2021? And we'll walk you through a strategic assessment that you need to do before you spend a single dollar. And then finally, we'll talk about how do you get those new patients in the practice. All right, so as I say, we're a little over 20 years now. Over the years, we've really gotten to know, a lot of different practices, all 50 states, and observe some, just some wonderful techniques that we'll share with you today. So we're actually up to about 95 people now. We've met some really good folks during the COVID times that I didn't realize that was going to be one of the silver linings. We've been able to attract even more talent during this time, so that's great. For those of you who don't know us, we have a single point of contact with all of our customers. Everything we do is completely custom. We have no contracts, and everybody works here. So, of course, we're spread out during the pandemic time, working from home and other places. But everybody that works on the marketing plans and the dental practices here, the websites, they're all employees of TNT. We don't outsource anything. And the heart really of our client-facing part of our company are what we call our growth leaders. And these folks are, gosh, they wear a lot of hats. You know, at various times they're a project manager for the websites. Certainly they're marketing strategists, and sometimes they're coaches for conversion, all kinds of things. And internally here, they have a tremendous amount of talent that they can draw from to get things done. And here are our internal teams. Again, all of these employees of TNT, we don't outsource any of those, but you can see that all the different things that kind of go into making a website and a marketing plan work. All right, so let's talk about Dr. Mitchell, and because again, I think he's a fantastic example of a practice we try to learn from, and we've been privileged to work with him for a few years now, and we've kind of themed this study around Henry Ford quote. You know, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so, you know, the interesting thing about Dr. Mitchell is when we met him, he was already an extremely successful practice. And, you know, he's always looking to do something different and get better every single year. So I definitely admire that about him and the practice. So they're a kind of a 2-location practice in Kansas. The main one is in Topeka. They have a satellite location in Silver Lake. And I think he's a pretty representative of the successful type of practice that we work with, traditional hygiene restorative practice. So the case study here, as we talk about it, is going to be between the years 2018 and 2019. And so one of the things that Dr. Mitchell does every year, and we'll talk about this here in a minute, is a planning and strategy session the year prior. So he gets together with his team, key members, and he invites us to it. And we talk about what we plan to do the next year. And so, 3% marketing budget, $2.6 million revenue, and you can sort of see the stats there. One of the interesting things about his marketing budget, when we met in 2018, the prior year he had spent 60% of it on direct mail. Now you might hear me, I don't want to be a direct mail basher at all, but there's almost always efficiencies that can be picked up in your direct mail. And so you'll see the results of that here in just a second. And then, of course, he tracks every one of his new patients beautifully, and we know exactly where they come from, and that's vitally important. So on the direct mail, we did a zoned zip code analysis of it. And, as it turns out, in almost all the cases, there are just a few zip codes in any sort of direct mail that we see where patients are actually coming from. And what we often see is that there's an inefficiency there where you're mailing out the zip codes that aren't really producing. So we went through that. He had a Google PPC campaign that we moved over to our team. And then he had identified sleep apnea treatment as one of the areas that he really wanted to grow for 2019. And so we built a new website for that and broke that off into sort of its own marketing piece. And then we helped him improve his rankings in Google for search. And the results were fantastic. As you can see there, 20% increase in raw numbers of new patients. The production followed was even better. And that third bullet point is the kicker to me. I mean, we did all of that. He did all of that. His team was fantastic through all of it, and we're able to reduce the marketing budget. So actually spent less on marketing, which, I get asked that all the time. How could it possibly be a marketing company telling me to spend less on marketing? But that's what Dr. Mitchell was able to achieve. So he got all of that growth, even in the satellite practice, significant growth, and the sleep apnea doubled. The treatment for sleep apnea doubled. So even as if you see at that bottom one there, we were able to, the biggest part of the savings came, from reducing that direct mail budget significantly from one year to the next. So, planning this in this way that he does is essential to achieving stuff like this. And so back to the Ford quote, even with that success, there are future opportunities there. And Dr. Mitchell's great at always resetting his goals for the next year. And so we still think there's plenty of room there to achieve more success in the future. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the insights that we gained from this patient survey that we conducted. There was almost 4,000 patients that responded to this across the U.S. It was a great cross section. I think it was very professionally done. And internally here, and I'll talk about this later in the presentation, The website's main job is to convert the traffic to the website into a new appointment. That's a conversion, we call it. So if it's going to do that effectively, it has to have the right kind of content on there. And so back to what I said earlier, when you're inside the industry and you're living dentistry every day, sometimes you sort of take it for granted. You think everybody thinks like you. And so we know that's not the case. And so we wanted to find out what's important to a patient. And there was really um, five that sort of stood out. And we had, I don't know, there might have been 35, almost 40 different items on the list that patients could choose from that would potentially be important. There were five that were extremely important that were identified. Over 70% of them identified these. And you may be surprised a little bit by some of them. And then I'm going to show you five that they thought were not important. And that's where the real surprises come in to me. So take this stuff back, be ready to, and I can send this to you afterwards. Hopefully we're recording this and you can have a copy of this, but this is, if you're not a T&T client, you can take this back to your company, this week and get started on having some of this on your website. So here's the five that were identified as the most important from a patient's perspective. This one's not necessarily a surprise to me, during this pandemic time, but what is a surprise to me is that not every website out there has information on, what you're doing at your practice, to be safe and take care of the COVID situation. And so we started working with our practices very early on this, and it's very important to patients. And of course, they identified it as the number one thing they're looking for. They want to see what you're doing. Of course, you're already safe. You're doing the right things anyway, I'm sure, but put it out there, put it on the homepage, put an easy to see link to it, and then, list out all of the things you're doing to prevent the spread of COVID. This one is another one that we anticipated would be there. It's a topic of interest in every conversation I have with a dental practice. And the opinions about dental insurance, of course, are all over the place. Regardless of our opinions of dental insurance, to a patient, it's extremely important. So on your homepage, you need to have welcoming information and welcoming language, and make people with dental insurance feel like they're welcome one way or another. And this one is somewhat interesting. So fair fees. So we had on the list, quite a bit about fees here and there. And I think historically, dentists have shied away from having any kind of discussion about fees on websites. And so, this is not where you have to put your fee schedule on the website. They don't, and you'll see here later that they don't necessarily care about the lowest price, but what they do care about is that your fees are fair. So having some kind of discussion and some kind of content that brings that up and addresses that seems to be important to patients. Now, this one I anticipated as well to a certain degree, but it's more specific than I had even thought. So we've known by collecting the data of the thousands of websites that we track every month that the About the Doctor page and About the Team page are always at the top of the list of popular pages. People click on them, they want to read about you, doctor, and they want to read about the team. Specifically, because we had a breakdown of options here. Specifically, they want to read about your education. So, all of the continuing ed that you do, all the specialized training, all of that needs to be on there, and it needs to be easy to access because patients are looking for it. And then this one is a slight twist on what we've known historically, but patients are concerned that your office is clean. And when it says modern there, I would say more just up to date. Not modern in the sense that you got to have chairs that look like a hand or something like that, but it just needs to be up to date and clean. That was what this particular message was. And so if you haven't given some thought to what it's like sitting in the patient waiting area, go out there, take a look at it, make sure that it looks clean and up to date, and it matters greatly to the potential patient. All right, so what do they not care about? And here's where there were a few surprises, very interesting to me. So the fifth least popular item on the list is scheduling online, which, TNT clients, we have scheduling opportunities on quite a few of our sites, and there's great companies out there that do a great job of helping you schedule online. At least according to our survey, it was not that important to patients. And so, I that's not to say you should go take it off immediately or anything like that. But I thought that one was pretty interesting. Specialization was the sort of the next one that was the least important from a patient perspective. I think that goes into the fact that, again, we're all into dentistry and understand it at a different level than a patient who's not dealing with a dentist except when they necessarily need one, and they don't even understand all the specializations that are out there. So some education is good, but patients aren't looking for that necessarily. So they're probably looking for a specialist when they need one, but on a general practice, they're not looking for that information. Same with the kids too. So I think patients are probably looking for a kid's dentist when they need one, but this one is a topic quite a bit when we're building websites with our practices. Should I have photos with families and kids and all of that, and should I mention that? From a patient's perspective, they're not necessarily worried about that. I think they think that there's an assumption that you'll that if it's a little kid, they might need to, and they need a specialist, they'll try to find a pediatric practice. But it doesn't seem to be important in the general search. Now this one kind of surprised all of us here a bit, is the new patient specials. We spend a lot of time here at TNT, and we use them effectively in advertising campaigns, but on your website, it was not deemed important in the survey. So if you're spending a lot of time worried about new patient specials, don't, because from a patient's perspective, it's not overly important. And then the least important one, according to our survey, was spa-like amenities. And so if you've been in dentistry for a while, certainly here at TNT over the 20 years, there was a time in the early 2000s where it felt like every dental practice we were building a website for, was a Four Seasons resort. And I think times have changed, and certainly perspectives from the patients have changed. And the spa-like amenities, again, I'm a patient too, and I enjoy being able to look at TV when I'm having my teeth cleaned, and having the headphones and all of that kind of thing. But it appears that when patients are looking online and reading about your story, they don't deem things like that as overly important. So that one got the least number of votes in our survey. All right, so take those insights back to your marketing company, your web development company, and then let's talk a little bit about getting to that net new patient idea. And so, back to our more successful practices, the ones that we see making more use out of their marketing dollars than others, they concentrate on 4 phases of practice growth, not just one, because I think the tendency is to concentrate on, if you read this left to right, the tendency is to go to your marketing company and say, okay, I need more leads. I need a lot more leads because I need to grow. I need, more patients. And so the bulk of your efforts there are typically spent on lead generation, and maybe a little bit on conversion. But the practices we work with that are just going, lights out and growing at a much faster rate are concentrating on those first 4 squares, all of them. And if you concentrate on all 4, from get the lead from marketing, convert them into an appointment, get treatment accepted by the patient, and then build that long-term relationship, that'll get you to net new patients. And as I say, typically it's only new patients that you're worried about. And mathematically, you can say, okay, so net new patients are new patients minus your lost patients. And that sounds like it's an obvious fact, but the reality is most practices are not worried as much about their lost patients as they are their new ones. And so for our example here, we're saying anybody that hasn't come back in 18 months is a lost patient. And I think we probably would all agree that it's probably a shorter time period than that. You'd of course like to see them probably 3 times during that time. So, and let's look at an example of this. So if you use Dental Intel, this is an example of Dental Intel chart. that sort of reads the data in your practice management software and gives you some interesting insights. This is new patients year over year, and it's over a 2-year period here. And really what this chart's showing, if you look at the blue bars on top, those are new patients coming into the practice. And then the red bars on the bottom are new patients leaving the practice, or patients leaving the practice. So new ones on top, lost ones on bottom on the red. And then that sort of dark line going through is your net new patient number. So that's that's where you want to see it above the line. So this particular one, this chart you're seeing here, is an actual practice that that we work with. And so when we met them, one of the things they were talking about is that they somehow were getting a lot of new patients, but didn't seem to be growing at the rate that they wanted to. And so as we dug into the numbers a little bit, we saw a spot here. And so from, I think it's a 6-month period here from October 18 to maybe somewhere around April 19. There's 6 months here where they brought in, it was a direct mail campaign. And again, sounds like I'm picking on direct mail, but it was brought in 50 new patients a month. So 300 new patients. And then we looked 18 months later, you see that corresponding circle on the bottom right. They had maintained only 24 of those 300 new patients. The rest had not come back in. So, the point here is they spent a tremendous amount of money to get those 300 new patients, and only 24 of them are still with the practice 18 months later. So concentrating on those other 3 blocks make a huge difference in the efficiency of that money spent. So again, the goal here is keeping them and netting new patients. All right, so if you buy into that concept, and I think you should, because again, we see it with practice after practice that are super successful, that's what they concentrate on. How do you go about doing that for yourself? Well, the first thing you should do before you spend any money is take what we would call a strategic assessment. We start all of our clients this way, and you can kind of go through this process with them before we start spending any of their money, because it's very important that when we do get to the money spend, we want to do it efficiently. So what is the strategic assessment? Well, first we want to know, sort of what motivates you, because, the reality is, whether you're, looking to, build up the value of your practice because you want to sell it, or if you want to spend more time with your family. Some of them tell us that, gosh, I'm just, I want to reduce the stress. I want to, I don't want to worry about this anymore. Or if it's just, I want to get filthy rich, whatever it might be. I think approaching it this way as you're doing your planning will make you feel better no matter what your motivation is. And the first thing we want to put into place of the strategic assessment is the measurement system. What do you measure? You got to have these measurements in place, because if you don't, it's impossible to know if your marketing plan is working for you and if your money is being spent wisely. So when we put in a measurement system, we measurements on the left, and then we use those calculations to get to the numbers on the right. So we measure all the new patients, the sources of those new patients, where are they coming from, how much are we spending to get them, what are our total patients for the practice, how many do we have overall, and how much is our overall production. And if we have all of those numbers, we can calculate the 3 bullet points on the right: the production per patient, per new patient, and the cost per new patient. And all of that together, if we have all of those measurements on a month-to-month basis, we can help you spend your money wisely. And so here's this kind of a snapshot of one that a real client with some, and this is just a screenshot of it. So it actually, if I could scroll down, which you can't, you would see even more measurements that take place. But you can see January 20 at the top goes through October 20, and you can see those zeros right around April and May when COVID was really having everybody shut down. But the numbers started coming back, and so hopefully that's all a thing of the past for us there. But down at the bottom, you can see the website traffic is not just a single number; it's broken down by source in great detail. So you really want to be measuring all pieces to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. So once you have your measurements in place, if you think back to that, the 4 phases of growth, that second one is conversion. And here's one where, again, it's probably unusual to hear it from a marketing company, but if you focus on conversion, we've learned this from our clients. You can get up to 3 times as many new patients without spending any more dollars on marketing, just from the marketing that you're already doing. And pretty much all of them that concentrate on conversion have some sort of staffing in place, 7A to 7P, to be able, and even on weekends, really, to be able to field those leads and convert them into new patients and get them set up. So that's one that not everybody does. The ones who do find that it helps the conversion tremendously. So what does that actually mean in a practice? This is a very common conversation I have with somebody I meet for the first time that's interested in marketing. Tim, I'm getting 25 new patients a month now. I'd like to, I'd like 10 more. I'd like to get to 35. And so when I dig into it, I find out that they're getting 100 potential new patients, that they're converting 25. So, 1 out of 4, that's great. And they want 10 more. And the tendency is to want to spend more to get more leads. And so, Tim, what can you do to get me more leads? Well, I can do that, but that costs money. I mean, so that's one way to do it. But the other way, door number 2 there is, what if you converted 10% more of the leads that were already coming in? So back to that. So 10% more of those 100 leads would get you to the 35, and you didn't have to spend $1 with me. So, to me, that's a very interesting approach. And something you want to make sure you address before you start spending marketing money. And believe me, I believe in spending marketing money. I'll talk to you about that too. But you want to get the most out of it, and you want to be able to be as efficient as possible. So, as I've observed in our most successful practices, they're converting at a higher rate than the others. And I've never talked to a practice who's invested in phone training who didn't think it was worthwhile. So one of the things we do here at TNT, and I know other companies may do it as well, is for our marketing clients, we track phone calls, all of them, and help listen to the phone calls and track leads that way. And there's always opportunities for phone training. And every practice that is very successful with this has invested to some degree in some kind of phone training, because that's a primary source of conversion. But also, these days, don't forget that, leads come in, potential new patients come in from all of these digital formats as well that you see down below. And the key with those, a phone call, you answer it. That's the key there. With these alternate lead sources that come in, it's quick turnaround. If you can respond to them within 5 minutes, instantly to 5 minutes, your rate of conversion is going to be significantly higher than if you wait till the end of the day. I mean, you're going to lose them. So understand that these other lead sources are what people want to use today in addition to the phone, and be prepared to help convert those. And again, that's a characteristic of every successful practice we work with. All right, so you got your measurements in place, you're getting good at conversion. The other thing that we see almost universally across our successful clients is their concentration on hygiene and its role in the practice, and how it's really the multiplier for growth. And what I mean by that is that they're really good at all 3 of these steps: getting the patients to come back for the appointments, staying high in recall, and then they set their standard of care. And I think this is key. They set their standard of care for that appointment to get the most out of it. And I'll show you that here in a minute. And then the hygiene for these practices seems to be the springboard for the rest of the treatment diagnosis. And it's really a team effort. Everybody's on the same page, and the hygiene is really the engine that runs it. And here's kind of an example of a typical difference we would see. That, the top one is somebody who's probably not getting everything out of their hygiene department compared to the bottom one where they are. And the same 2,000 active patients, but the practice on the bottom has got 1,700 coming back routinely compared to 1,400, and they've set their standard of care to get $209 production per appointment compared to $152, and that's almost $300,000 of revenue a year, again, without spending $1 in marketing. So we see that pretty much universally on our most successful clients. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the power of reviews, because reviews are another thing that you've really got to concentrate on, we think, if you're going to get the most out of everything. Because For dental practice, reviews are truly straight up pass fail. So everybody's going to look at your reviews. They're almost certainly going to go to Google to see them. That's probably the place that everybody's going to go. And you're either going to pass that test or you're going to fail it. And unfortunately, in dentistry, they're judging the quality of your dentistry by what people say online. And I know that's not true in all cases because, the quality could be fantastic, but if the experience is bad, they're going to assume that the quality is bad as well. And your reviews also have an impact on your Google ranking. So it plays into your SEO and your ability to be found on Google. So they're extremely important. And if you're a subscriber to Wall Street Journal, perhaps you already saw this article maybe 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, and you can follow up with me, and I'll try to get it to you. I think you have to be a subscriber to get it, but it was a very interesting article about reviews, and they had actually done a extensive kind of study and determined, this is like a university study, that 4.7 is an ideal ranking number, for your reviews. Instead of 5 stars, 4.7 is absolutely perfect. And that there's some thought that if you have 500 5-star reviews, they must not be real. And if it's a 4.2, you must not be any good. But 4.7 is ideal. And the other sort of takeaway that I got from it, there's a lot of interesting points in it, is that the reviews that had the most impact were the ones that told the story. So it wasn't just the ones, Dr. Smith is great, love him. That didn't have the impact that, I came in there, I was in really bad pain, and my smile was horrible, and I didn't think I could ever get this problem fixed. And they worked with me, and it was difficult, and they even helped me financially to figure out how to pay for it, and everything was wonderful. And now my life's fantastic. It was those kinds of reviews that told a story that had the biggest impact. So a very interesting article there, and take a look at that on Wall Street if you get a chance. All right, so you've done your strategic assessment. You're ready to now spend money on marketing. So how do you do that? So you start really with what we would call a holistic approach, and that means sure, there's money to be spent on paid marketing and certain areas where you're going to buy ads and do all of those sort of things that are traditionally thought of as marketing. But you also want to pay attention to the internal pieces too, the referrals, and community marketing, and just every pathway that a patient can find you. You want to make sure that you're doing something to address that pathway. And all of them, as you see here in this graphic, flow through the website. And the website's main goal is to convert those interested parties into an appointment. The website also serves as the foundation of your search too. So it has to be constructed in a way that makes it search friendly and allows for SEO growth. So on a website, and you can take these down too. These are critical. Every website should have these pieces. A locked header that stays in place at the top of the website as you're scrolling down, that has your phone number, your address, a button to request contact and an appointment. Landing pages within the website, and that's for any ads that you're running on Google or anywhere. You want to have a corresponding landing page within the website that converts that ad. So you don't want to just run a Google ad and have it go straight to the home page. You want to have a landing page that corresponds to it and helps convert that into an appointment. And as I say, it's a huge part in how your site is ranked. If Google can't read the pages properly, you're not going to be ranked on the first page. And then we're huge believers in custom photos and video. So again, this is one of those investments, whether you use somebody locally, whether you hire some company from wherever, it's worth the effort and it's worth the money to put the custom photos and video on your website. And then these days, of course, mobile, it really is mobile first. And, I don't doubt that at some point down the road, it'll be mobile only. It's just probably 55% to 60% of all the traffic already. So more than half is coming from a mobile device. So look at your site, go through it on your mobile device, and make sure that it's easy to navigate and easy to contact you from. And this is kind of a callback to the survey that we did. Remember, this is the content that patients say are the top 5 most important things on a website to them. So make sure this is front and center on your website. You know, get your COVID protocols in place right on top, right in the front page. You know, clean, modern office. Make sure you have a picture of that. All of these things are very important to patients. All right, so you got your website in good shape. You get ready to go there. You know, out of all of these sort of 5 pathways that we've got listed here, within them, there's probably, you know, paid marketing alone, there's probably 25 different things you can do within paid marketing. Well, so how do you sort all of that out? So I put a grid together here from top to bottom is cost. So, you know, every method that you can get a new patient, you know, you got to consider, is it expensive or is it low cost? And then from left to right is the quality of the patient that it tends to bring in. And so if you take those two together, the quadrant you really want to spend the most time looking at is that bottom right quadrant, which is low cost but high quality patient. So, and in our diagram here, we've got you know, patient referrals, which probably won't surprise anybody. You already know that you know, probably your best patients are coming in from referrals, you know, from your best patients now. And then Google SEO, search, community, and retargeting. So let's look at some of these and talk about the best ways to get patients in. So again, referrals, when I'm talking to a new practice, sometimes they're surprised to know that I'm really interested in making sure that they maximize the referrals from their current patients, you know, before they spend money on ads and marketing with me. You know, I think overall, as a group, dentists spend probably less money and less effort here than they need to. Our best practices, our top performing ones, are all laser focused on this and are truly maximizing. I'd like to see at least half of your patients come from new patient referrals. And again, our top performing practices are even higher than that. So, you know, you'll spend a few dollars here, but you'll spend way less here than you will on the other pieces. So, you know, and the key here is just making sure that the experience itself is worth sharing. Again, it's critical. I get asked about which tool do I use, you know, to get referrals and reviews, and all of, you know, the tools all work. The key is creating an experience that people want to share. And so if you do that, you'll get the referrals here. And again, it's so less expensive and so much more efficient than buying ads, which again have their place and are important, but you sure don't want to be doing that until you've got your referrals working great. And then I talk to a lot of practices as well who say, you know, well, I communicate with my patients all the time. I send out an email to them every month. And, you know, we say that's a fallacy a little bit, in that very few of them open it. If you just send it one time, virtually nobody is recognizing that you're communicating with them. You have to send it multiple times. You have to track who's opening it, who hasn't opened it, and you really have to measure that to know if you're getting through to your patients. So, you know, it's great that you're sending something out, but make sure that you're able to measure who's opening it and how much of it's getting read. All right, so another high quality, low cost way to get patients is organic SEO. And so if you don't know what that is, that's simply getting found on the first page of Google for dentist near me or dentist Dallas. Yeah, most of the terms are coming in from that way, but there are geographic areas, neighborhoods, things like that you want to be careful. There's probably only, you know, a dozen words that people type in to find a dentist that are crucial, but you want to be able to measure all of that. And you know, we think of organic SEO, we call it the tortoise around here. It's one of the slowest ways, but it almost always wins the race. So you know, over the course of 2 years, you'll get more good patients for less money from organic SEO than you will from any other method other than referrals. And there's a lot that goes into getting found too. So again, back to that website that we talked about, you got to have that thing set up properly so that the site architecture and the content can be read properly. The engagement you have on your social media plays a big part in it. All of the directory sites that are out there plays a huge role in it. And then there, you know, even in the most competitive markets, even backlinking is important. Another big area, and it's a little tricky right now. There's no two ways around it. But again, if we're looking at the light at the end of the tunnel, and that 2021 is going to be better than 2020, you've got to find a way to be a part of your community, because a dentist is a small business in a community, and it's a wonderful way to to attract patients, to create foot traffic. And we've developed, again, based on what we've observed from our most successful practices, we've developed a great community marketing leader job description. So if you're interested in boosting your community networking, for 2021, I'm happy to share that job description with you and send that out. And it makes a huge difference. And again, these are in the right quadrant. This is low cost, compared to some of the other ways you can get new patients, and they produce extremely good quality patients as well. And back to our survey, and of course, I think we all know this intuitively, is that patients care tremendously about their insurance. And so if you're, first thing we want to know, are you in network or out of network, and what is your position on it? We want to make sure you get your messaging properly set up on your website for insurance. And this is where keywords come into play. Some people will search for their insurance plan, Delta dentist near me. And so you want to make sure that you're found by that. If you're a Delta dentist or whatever you might be, whatever your insurance positioning is, you want to make the most out of it. And we're big believers also in membership plans, and have seen some of our most successful practices seem to all have that option as well. And that it's fantastic, particularly for self-employed people, small businesses, sometimes retired folks fit into that plan beautifully. So all of this messaging needs to be in place, and it's again, a very important from the patient perspective. And then we get into paid marketing, which a lot of times is what maybe pops into your mind most when you say, what is marketing? Well, marketing must be this. It's when we buy ads, or we do a Facebook ad or a billboard or direct mail, or whatever it is. And again, we as a marketing company sell a lot of paid marketing, but what I want you to understand today is that this should be added on after you've maximized those other pieces, because this is not in the bottom right hand quadrant. It'll get you some patients, and it'll get you some good ones, but the cost per patient will be higher here than it will be in any of the other pieces we've talked about. And again, if you're doing direct mail, it seems like it's extremely popular in the dental industry. Always has been for the 20 years we've been doing this. Just make sure at least that you're tracking everything that comes from it, and that you're making it as efficient as possible. And we can certainly help you with that, and others can as well. But look into that more if you're doing direct mail, because there's almost certainly some savings that can be had there. And we get a lot of questions about the new patient offer, and so again, as we talked about it earlier, it was not a big deal of specials and things like that. We're not a big deal on the website. A new patient offer can be effective in paid marketing to attract people and potential new patients. The interesting thing here, what we're trying to illustrate here, is it seems to be that practices we talk to are concerned, well, should I make it $150 or does it have to be $100? And they're worried about the price. How much should the new patient offer be? And the reality is it doesn't matter, because there's not going to be enough takers. It's an important thing to get the clicks. It's an important thing to get the conversions. But if you see we see this all the time, out of every 50 new patients that come in, even those that responded to the offer, 30 of them will end up going directly to the insurance plan, which will cover it. Our successful practices are converting 10 of those to the membership plan, and only 10 of them actually utilize the offer. So if your difference in price is $50 that you're worried about, can I afford to go $50 lower? Well, you can, because even if there's only 10 that take it, that's $500. A single extra patient will more than make up for that. So that's the point of what we're trying to show here. Don't sweat the amount of the new patient offer. Just use it where you need it. And so that kind of leads us here to our end. And if you're going back to your marketing company today, these are the first 5 questions that I want to know anytime I'm engaging a new customer. What are your new patient goals? What are you actually getting now? And and it's worth the effort to go in and actually find that out. A lot of times I'll be talking to a practice who is certain that what the new patient numbers are actually coming in, but once we dig into the numbers, it's something different. So you want to know what you're actually getting now. What do you want them to be? What's driving the revenue in your practice? What role does insurance play in your office? Because as we talked about, it's different for a lot of folks. And then how are you going to define success? Is it a production number? Is it a number of new patients? What defines success for you? And then what kind of marketing are you doing now? Are you doing direct mail? Are you doing paid ads? Are you paying somebody for SEO? What we want to know everything that you're spending now. So these are kind of the big five, we call it, and this is the starting point. So if you're working with TNT, hopefully you've already kind of been through that exercise. If you're working with somebody else, take these questions back and kind of go through this exercise. But this is the starting point before you start spending more money on marketing and planning for 2021. So myself, as I say, I'm Tim Kelly. The other co-founder, the other Tim, is Tim Healy. These are our contact information. Feel free to reach out to any of us. You don't have to work with TNT to ask questions or to get help from us. I'm happy to follow up and get you additional information or anything I can do to run a report or whatever I can do to help. So feel free to contact us anytime. And thank you all very much for attending the presentation today. Hopefully you've got a few nuggets you can take back and begin to implement immediately. And I think if my team is still on here, do we have any questions? We've got a little bit of time if anybody wants to ask some questions through the moderator here. Let's see. Chris, do you see? I can't see where. Let's see. Here they are, I think. Okay, so here's one of them. What big mistake do you see practices making in their marketing? Well, okay, well, to me, the biggest mistake I see is not planning ahead. So if you're on this presentation now and you're going to do some planning for 2021, you've avoided the biggest mistake. And so if you'll go through these exercises where you before you spend money, sort of take stock of where you are now, you'll avoid spending more than you have to, and you'll be much more efficient with your marketing dollars. Let's see. Here's another one. This one says, what works better for getting new patients, Google or Facebook? Well, that's an interesting question. So, both. I wouldn't say either is better than the other, but they're somewhat different. It depends on what you're looking to market. There are certain types of dentistry that work better on one platform than the other, and then there's different kinds of marketing you can do on each one. So, for instance, on Google, there's organic SEO, so just getting found, and then there's also ads that you can do on Google, and same with Facebook. You can use Facebook in a social media format in that it amplifies your community marketing, and it's a great place to post and display the personality of the practice and the integration into the community. And that's one type of marketing on Facebook. And then you can also run ads on Facebook. So different types of things work better in each one. So I would say they're both effective, but not necessarily for the same approach. All right, I think that that looks. Oh, here's one more. All right, so how much should I spend on marketing? Well, that's another good question. It varies, depending on how aggressive you want to be, how quickly you're looking to grow. I would say based on what we see from our clients, though, we see anywhere from 3 to 5% of their overall revenue as a budget, and the 5% is definitely aggressive. I mean, if it's efficiently spent, 5% is an aggressive marketing budget. If it's inefficiently spent, you're going to see that number go up. So, as we saw in Dr. Mitchell's example, I think he's spending 3% and got tremendous growth out of it. And so he was doing all these other things, and so he's an example of getting your money's worth out of your 3% budget. All right, let's see if there's anything else here. If that, I appreciate again everybody for attending today. And again, don't hesitate to call on us if there's anything we can do to help. And have a wonderful 2021 and a great holiday season. Thank you.